How's it going, everybody? It's the John Low Fox News, my channel where I talk about anime, video games, cartoons, most notably Sonic and Ninja Turtles. And today, I'm here to talk about TMNT. Specifically, I'm here to talk about Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, in case you don't know what Tales of the TMNT is, basically it's a spin-off show, not the Season 5 TMNT 2012 series. It's actually the, I know, I'm just messing with you, but I'm pretty sure you know what it is. It's basically the spin-off show. Based off the Mutant Mayhem movie that I hated so goddamn much. But I'm here to talk about it because I watched the entire series and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Now, I will be fair and stuff. I won't just be overly critical. I won't try to bash it too much. And I'm going to kind of distance a little bit of my own knowledge and all that stuff. But you'll see what I mean later. But yeah, and I'm also going to keep saying that, oh, it's woke or whatever. I'm going to keep that in the agenda. I'm going to keep that to a minimum, okay? Because I don't feel like my opinions or my thoughts on this show was kind of influenced because, oh, it's woke. It's just influenced because of its own quality. All right? So, let's get right into it. All right, so starting off, I'm actually going to try and summarize the entire season to the best of my ability. So I'll talk about the first half, which is episodes 1 through 6, and then I'll talk about the second half, which is 7 through 12, okay? So let's get into it. So for the first half, it's about Dr. Josephina Bishop, who's a scientist who developed a prejudice for mutants after the Turtles' battle with Superfly had destroyed her lab. So 2 months later, after deeming mutants to be dangerous, she builds an advanced robot to kind of hunt them down. Now, the first 4 episodes are each kind of character focused, starting with Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and then Donatello. The 5th episode is more so like a Bishop's origin story, and the 6th episode is the conclusion to this arc. Now, Donatello does create Metalhead, and Michelangelo mutates Pigeon Pete, or mutates a pigeon into Pigeon Pete, who actually helps save the day. So, alright, so the second half of the series. So after the events of the movie, 3 sea creatures are mutated and form a gang to flood the city. The 3 sea creatures are Goldfin, Lee the Eel, and Mustang Sally. Now, each of them take on the turtles and the mutanimals as well as like their henchmen and stuff that they have, which looks like some kind of weird coral-like things with tentacles or whatever. And after being rejected by their own kind, they kind of like become a little bit more jaded and all that other stuff. So while running errands, the turtles kind of get picked apart by them and their goons, but eventually Goldfin kind of turns on his friends in favor of like, you know, joining up with a tracksuit gangster named Bernie, who's actually supposed to be this version of Rat King in the series, but yeah, Bernie, who kind of promised him like a fortune basically, but they're kind of defeated by the turtles in the end of the day, so that's pretty much the entire story. Now, before I actually go with the bad, I'm actually going to go with the good first. So I'm going to tell you what I actually liked about the series, or the pros at least, before I go into the cons, okay? So for the pros, the characters that I thought was okay. Now, I think Metalhead, Donatello, Michelangelo, Wingnut, Lee the Eel, and Mustang Sally, I thought, okay, they're okay characters, or maybe I like their concept, or maybe they're a little decent, alright? Everyone else, though, I didn't care too much about, if I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't care about much like of anyone else besides these characters, okay? Now, the animation. I'm not a fan of the style or how the scenes are kind of recycled, but the action in the 2D style look a lot better than the actual movie. Granted, so I would definitely take this more so than what we got with that fake-ass Spider-Verse looking, movie and stuff, if I'm going to be honest, like, yeah. And don't get me wrong, Spider-Verse does have some good animation, but I'm just saying they were trying too much with that, and this looks a lot more better 2D style, if I'm going to be honest. And then my final pro is that I think that some of the episodes that were decent was Mikey Does the Right Thing, which is episode 2, Donnie Haynes Tough, which is episode 4, Night of the Mechazoids, which is episode 6, the finale of the first arc, and then Donnie Gets Deep, which is episode 10. So other than that, those are all the episodes, which is about 4 of them, that I thought was actually alright, or I thought, okay, these are the strongest episodes out of the series, so I'll at least give them that, alright? So those are pretty much my pros. Some of the characters I thought was alright, the animation, and some decent episodes, which is really 4 out of 12, so that's not really a good rating. But anyways, moving on. Alright, so now we're about to get into some of the good stuff. Now the cons. Alright, so first off, the story. Now, putting aside how the series already derails from TMNT because of the movie, I said I was going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Alright? I know what I said. Alright, I will give it the benefit of the doubt. Now, my problem is they kind of padded the episodes out to kind of tell a mini arc when some of the stuff that can be like resolved a lot more earlier. But that's just me. I get that they kind of want to give us more time to kind of get to know each turtle, but they could have just made like the show more episodic. And this isn't just like a Tales of the TMNT problem, but even just newer shows in general, like Sonic Prime, which I like Sonic Prime. I like the animation, the story, it's there. But it's more so story-driven than character-driven. I feel like if they had more character-driven stories, then a show can definitely, like, you know, a show like this or like Sonic Prime definitely could have been a lot more better versus making it completely linear, you know? But anyways, as much as I like parallel episodes sometimes, that's usually done with like 2 episodes or an A and a B plot for one episode, you know, before it's like just ready to move on. Now, I know it kind of sounds unfair to kind of bring up past shows, but the showrunners brought this on themselves for making a TMNT series and not really learning why people actually like, you know, the other projects so much more. Now, the 2003 series. During its first season, we're able to give different plots where the heroes got their own individual stories here and there. Now, some examples, and I'm only using the first 12, okay? Because, again, I want to just make this a fair comparison. So, for example, right, you had episodes like Meet Casey Jones or The Unconvincing Turtle Titan, which were character-focused episodes on Raphael and Michelangelo, okay? They didn't have to be told in the same kind of like, the same plot or whatever. It was just completely different plots that just take place a little bit apart from each other, okay? Then, even with the Tales of Leo, where they kind of told 4 different stories of the Ninja Turtles' impression about Leo growing up in a single episode. Like, it was just like that. You know what I mean? We got more stuff about, like, Leo as a character and what everyone else thinks about him, their dynamic with him and all that stuff. And it was done in, like, less than, 23 minutes? So that shouldn't be too hard, especially with a more modern-day cartoon, right? Because, I mean, the show came out, like, literally, like, 21 years ago, so it shouldn't be, like, really that hard to kind of, like, condense some of this stuff, but okay. But anyways, yeah, so that's kind of the problem, especially since more modern cartoons kind of have a lesser order of episodes, because back in the day, like, the first season of the 2003 series had at least, like, 26 episodes. Now, today, Tales of the TMNT, which is 21 years later after the 2003 series, or after its start, I mean, this only has, like, 12 episodes. So it's just like, okay, so why pad out all these episodes and stuff if you need more time? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, that's kind of a waste of time. But that's just my opinion, though, of how I see it. Alright, coming up on con number 2, I have the comedy. Now, I know comedy is subjective, but just like my problem with Mutant Mayhem, none of the jokes landed for me. I mentioned before that I'm not a fan of, like, gross humor, so, like, examples like dogs pissing, pigeon shit, and random throwing up and stuff is just not really something that just makes me, like, laugh all of a sudden. You know what I mean? But anyways, and it kind of just comes off as just really as a cheap laugh. Another thing that they kind of do too much is, like, too much banter and awkward dialogue. That's, like, what kind of takes me out from, like, taking it seriously, because the jokes kind of undercut the whatever development or the story itself that they're trying to tell. So that's also, like, one of my main problems with, like, Rise, which they kind of doubled down on with, like, random gibberish and to attempt to be, like, funny and stuff. They're like, haha, somebody said this at this exact moment, even though I'm supposed to be kind of absorbed in, like, what's going on, but okay.
Teacher?
I see your talents have gone beyond the mere physical level. Your skills are now at the point of spiritual insight. I have several questions. What is the highest technique you hope to achieve?
To have no technique.
Very good. What are your thoughts when facing an opponent?
There is no opponent.
And why is that?
Because the word I does not exist.
So, continue.
A good fight should be like a small play, but played seriously. A good martial artist does not become tense, but ready. Not thinking, yet not dreaming. Ready for whatever may come. When the opponent expands, I contract. When he contracts, I expand. And when there is an opportunity, I do not hit. It hits all by itself.
Now, you must remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and he will break the enemy. The it that you refer to is a powerful weapon, easily misused by the martial artist who deserts his vows. For centuries now, the code of the Shaolin Temple has been preserved. Remember, the honor of our brotherhood has been held true. Tell me now the Shaolin Commandment number 13.
A martial artist has to take responsibility for himself and to accept the consequences of his own doing.
And look, when it comes to comedy, it's not like my expectations are high, because like it's just something that's like well timed. It's something that will just kind of catch you off guard, you know? That's how I really feel about comedy. Now, characters that are written as like certain stereotypes in order to kind of exaggerate their personalities for the sake of comedy. So I'm gonna use an example. So since I'm rewatching Ramna and a Half, one of my favorite romantic comedies, that's an anime. I'll use that for an example. All right. Now, Ramna is the main character who's a teenage martial artist who's cursed with the ability to transform into a girl, right? So, kind of expect there to be, I know it sounds completely random, so expect there to be jokes about his manhood, him taking advantage of his girl form to kind of get what he wants, and his boyish behavior in his girl form, you know? Then there's Akane, who's Ramna's love interest, who's a tomboy, and she's fickle, and all that stuff, so you can definitely expect some slap humor, or some slapstick humor, and there's definitely like some shots kind of taken that she's not very good at being like, at womanly things, or she's not really, girly or anything. She's not good at sewing. She can't cook to save her life. So expect jokes like that. Or like some other stereotypes in that show, like Ramna's teacher, Hoposai. He's the perverted master. Shampoo, who's like Ramna's second love interest in the show, and she's also Chinese. They kind of exaggerate her accent, and some of the jokes centered around her are based off of like, a lot of Chinese related jokes and all that. Or Ryoga, who is Ramna's rival and stuff. He kind of has a thing for Akane and all that stuff. Or he's always trying to fight Ramna, or the man has terrible sense of direction and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, those are some things that kind of makes that a little funny, or that makes it work. So my problem with Tales of the TMNT is that the characters kind of says things like spontaneous during like a serious moment or during a battle, even when you kind of like expect us to kind of laugh. So how am I supposed to feel the gravity of the situation of every character is just joking around? You know what I mean? Like even in Deadpool and Wolverine, they kind of stopped the jokes to show how serious they were kind of being at times. Since that's a more recent example, since that movie came out and it was awesome. Jokes were funny, well-timed, etc. Okay, and they knew when to be serious and when not to be serious. Alright? Now, that's just my opinion on the comedy. Alright, so I'm about to go into the characters. Now, just to make one thing clear, I don't see this version of the characters as the same characters that I've grown up with or followed for the last 21 years. And I know there have been different versions that have been shuffled around here and there, but I'm kind of distancing them from like the more accurate takes. Not out of respect for this universe, but because they're not really basing them off of anything but the surface level character traits. So, since they're not really going to use the source material to actually build up this universe properly, then I don't have to accept them as nothing but the pseudo turtles. Now, I'm going to start off talking about the main characters, and then I'll work my way up to like talking about the supporting characters. Then I'll talk about the villains, alright? So, I'm going to get started with Leonardo. So, Leonardo still kind of remains like the most disrespected among his brothers, constantly getting harped on and drowned out, which I'll go into more detail about that later. Not so sure of himself, he's usually just panicky, and since this version is focusing less on his like ninja roots, he's not really committed to like really training or self-improving himself mentally. And I can't really blame him, because he has a terrible mentor, and the only two people that in the show that actually has a degree of respect for him is April and Pigeon Pete of all people. Now, if I'm being honest, like, that's really it. Now, they still do call him by that dumbass nickname, Leonardo. Get it? Leonardo. Yeah, like retard, or nard, like he's a nerd.
Hey, we got a business tour. All right, hey, who might you be, my man?
Leo.
What?
Leo.
Fuck is Leon? You bad, boy. What you doing, man? Get the fuck out of my pocket. You crazy? All right, fuck it. Then go ahead and take it, man. It's your money. Ain't goddamn way.
Alright, with that aside, Michelangelo. Now, Michelangelo is actually a decent character, and I'm kind of glad they dropped his melon head design that he had from the movie, but he still has the braces, though. Now, I don't have much of a problem with him too much character-wise, since he does kind of act like Michelangelo anyways. So, yeah, he's cool. Raphael in the series, he has some of the weakest episodes to me, where he kind of spent one episode mostly tied up and captured by the purple dragons before kind of continuing his fight. And that's not to say that Raph isn't looking forward to a fight, but I feel he's more exaggerated here. And on top of that, that's his lesson, is learning sensitivity of others. So, okay. And then there's Donatello, where he's like the most tolerable to me. And he has some pretty good episodes with some pretty good dynamics with characters like Bishop and Wingnut. The only thing that kind of bothers me is that he's still it's still his voice. Okay, I know, but that's neither here nor there. And that may be a little biased since Donatello is my favorite Ninja Turtle in general. But this version does have some of the better episodes compared to the others. So, yeah. All right. My bias for April aside in this series, and in all fairness, she's a very bland character. Like, there's nothing that gets me invested in her character except maybe uplifting Leo in the first episode, but she interrupts people when they talk, so she's kind of rude. She uses her friends to kind of gain popularity, so she's pretty selfish, and she's just kind of a bit annoying. Like, there's nothing likable about this version of April. Still, like, I mean, even design and all that stuff aside, I'm just like, yeah, she's still not a good character though. And not only is that like the worst version of April to date, but also Master Splinter. Oh, sorry, my bad. I said Master Splinter. I mean Splinter. Since he kind of lacks his Japanese roots, he's also not really as philosophic as the other versions, which is kind of why the Turtles are always like lost or lacking a good moral compass, because this version isn't assertive enough, or he doesn't give them any useful advice that they can apply to themselves. He's basically an absent for like the first half of the show. I know he has some cameos here and there, some appearances where he's doing that stupid ass Verminese talk or whatever, but whatever. But anyways, and he is kind of there for the second half, but there he's kind of struggling to fight a mutant goldfish. Master Splinter struggling to fight a goldfish. Okay. And as for the mutanimals, half of them are kind of missing, like Bebop and Rocksteady and Mondo Gecko. Most likely because they probably couldn't bring back some of those voice actors, even though Seth Rogen worked on the show anyways, or he was one of the producers, but I don't know. Yeah, and he didn't say much in that movie anyways. I don't know what was his problem. And then, of course, they couldn't get John Cena back, I assume, and I don't know who voiced Mondo Gecko, but it's probably unimportant though. And then the other half is kind of present, like Leatherhead, Wingnut, Scumbug, and Genghis Frog. So yeah, it's pretty nice, except for Scumbug. They gotta drop that character, I swear. Anyways, they're still kind of continuing with this disgusting ass gag of Scumbug and Splinter, and Genghis is a little different, or I could be wrong. I don't know. It just seemed a little different for me compared to like the movie and stuff. And I know it's been like almost a year since I saw the movie, but I'm just like, I don't know. He just seemed a little different in the show, but I could be wrong. Leatherhead is okay, and Wingnut is actually a pretty likable character. And Metalhead, which he's new to the show, Metalhead is actually okay too, but I just don't like the design though. Now I'll go into detail about the villains and my thoughts. Now, the villain of the first half is Dr. Bishop. Apparently not Agent Bishop, but Dr. Bishop this time. Now, I've already ranted about how ugly the design the new modern April has been by making her black and fat, and apparently they didn't exactly learn this lesson when they were designing Bishop. So this time they made Bishop into a Latina doctor who creates a robotic army to kill the turtles. Now, the story is Bishop's lab was destroyed during the incident with the Superfly, which kind of created her prejudice against mutants. Even though she still has her job and she has a billionaire kind of in her corner that can just compensate her for her damages, but okay. But other than that, a simple but decent backstory, just the weakest take on Bishop in general, in my opinion. And some of the things that brings down this character is, like, as a threat, is like number one is the design. First off, that design is just god awful, man. It's terrible. Like, I think they even had toys and stuff on it, and it's just like, who would want to buy a toy with this version of Bishop on it? I mean, the other Bishop, definitely. But this, no. Just a no. Anyways, and then number two, making this version Agent Bishop. Like, this really could have just been a whole other character and stuff, but they had to make it Agent Bishop, and I'm just like, really? Number three, her henchman Ron tagging along, and I know Ron has a significance to her because pretty much the reason why Ron is there is because his dad is Bishop's boss. So he's a billionaire and all that stuff, and he's been compensating Bishop or whatever, or funding her robots and all that stuff, so he can easily pull the plug if Ron isn't into the whole robotic stuff. So, but he's just kind of there, and just whenever they interact and stuff, it honestly kind of brings down Bishop and her credibility as a villain and stuff, because, you know, villains, we're supposed to be taking them seriously. I'm not saying that there aren't times where villains can be a little goofballs and stuff like that, like a Bebop and a Rocksteady, but I'm just saying though, like, this isn't working, especially when it's your main villain. So whatever. And number four, not really demonstrating what kind of a threat that she can be. Now, what I mean by that is I think they could have actually shown her like robots defeating the mutanimals before going after the turtles. Now, that way the turtles would actually have more of a noble reason to want to stop her, and it kind of shows off that, oh, she's actually really like that, you know? Versus, oh, well, this is her first time doing it, and she goes after the turtles while they're, you know, leads into a trap or whatever when they're on their way to a Halloween party or something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing some ideas. But if they just did, you know, if they really didn't kill off Stockman, they honestly could have just used them. Or if they just wanted to use like a female villain, they could have just used Viral or Tempestra and stuff. Viral, she's a villain from the 2003 series. She's more of a tech-based alien and stuff. Obviously, what the name implies, Viral, she's like a virus and all that stuff, and her powers are more digital-based. And Tempestra, she was an in-game like sorceress that Leonardo had to face. But they could have obviously like rewrote around that story if they wanted to like make one of those characters work. Because it's not the first time they've, like, you know, reintroduced a new TMNT or an old TMNT character just to give them a different backstory. So they could have done that here though, but that's just me. Then they actually do have an original villain, being the East River 3. Now, the first member introduced is Lee, the Eel, who is actually my favorite out of the three. While I do like her design and the concept alone, personality-wise, she's just too apologetic as a villain, which I'm not really a fan of. Because if you're going to like do villains, at least have them do evil things. So since the sympathy card is kind of like overplayed in my opinion, it's like, yeah, that can only go but so far, you know what I mean? And then next up is Mustang Sally, who kind of reminds me a lot of this Mega Man X villain, Toxic Seahorse. But much like Lee, I like Sally's concept, just not the character for the personality. And one thing I did hate was the reminder that male seahorses can get pregnant, and that being all the character just talked about in a feminine way was his kids. He's like, my babies, my babies, my babies. Like, that's my character motivation. I'm like, okay, you don't gotta remind us every second that male seahorses can get pregnant. We get it, okay? And then finally there's Goldfin, who's actually the leader and arguably the best fighter. Now, he is the most villainous out of his party, but I'm not really a fan of how, like, towards the end he was getting second thoughts about becoming, you know, evil and all that stuff. I feel like they should have really substituted this character for Bludgeon, because seeing a pint-sized goldfish with 2 months of training, you know, just makes the Turtles and Splinter look bad in this version. Like, wow, you guys have been training for how long? Your entire lives? and stuff, and you've been mutants for how long, and you can't take on a mutant goldfish with that was trained by what? Like trained by some gangsters, even though you guys fought all those other gangsters in that movie? Okay. Kind of makes them look weak. Alright, now that I'm done talking about the characters, I'm about to talk about my nitpicks. Now, before I actually get to the criticism. So, first off is the comedy. Now, I already know. I know. I already talked about the comedy. But it's just really that bad, okay? Now, I know the show is, like, to me, like I said, the show is really unfunny. But what's even worse is I feel like they really dumbed down this world to kind of make the jokes work. And it doesn't work, okay? Like, I can't take anything seriously or whatever is going on or whatever. It's like, I'm going to use a quick little example. Like, it's like Velma, for example, right? Now, all the other shit about Velma and all that stuff and the characters aside, let's just ignore all that shit, all right? I can't take the story seriously in Velma because the characters don't take themselves seriously or nothing's ever taken seriously. Like, for example, it's supposed to be a murder mystery, right? And you see characters in the background and stuff just getting killed or something brutal happening to them, and nobody bats an eye, and it's supposed to be played off as a laugh. But when something seriously actually happens to one of the characters, it's like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, it's almost like Family Guy in a way. But I mean, but it makes sense with Family Guy because that's an adult comedy, and Family Guy, you just can't take that entire thing seriously at all. All right, Velma, they want you to take it seriously, but you can't take it seriously because they're trying to do those type of jokes or whatever. And it's the same thing with Tales of the TMNT, just that they're not really using adult jokes for it though. They're just, you know, but I'm just saying, like, that's just why it doesn't work though. All right. But anyways, comedy aside, the morality. Now, just like the movie where they were taught to steal, which it's funny because Genghis Frog actually kind of pointed that out and stuff, and a lot of the fans were like, yeah, why the hell is the turtle stealing at a convenience stores and stuff like that? And I know what you're probably thinking, well, they don't got money, so of course they had to take what they need. Okay, then why didn't they just take necessities like water or something, I don't know, sufficient? But they were taking bags of chips, they were taking sodas and all that other crap. Like, oh yeah, that's a necessity. Like, I'm just being honest. And if you want to talk about, well, where are they going to get the money from? Well, how do you think Donatello got glasses with his own prescription on it, or Michelangelo got his own braces? Like, come on. They can find money lying around somewhere, but apparently they can find those two things. Like, come on, bro. I'm just being honest. Like, I'm being really honest right now with you, but I really do hate the bad characteristics and stuff, and it really just turns off the characters. Hell, speaking of which, that was actually one of the things from the first TMNT movie, where the teenagers were literally stealing and stuff, and that was bad, and the turtles had to stop them. And yet, but again, I'm going to ignore the movie, alright? So anyways, but some of the morality I just don't like is like casually almost letting Bishop die, and Leonardo kind of being the only one to just like object to that, because everybody just turned their backs once the robots started to attack Bishop. They're like, alright, well, what's for dinner, guys? Like, what? And Leo was like, you serious? Like, this is wrong. We gotta help her. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what a hero would do, but it just, that's what I'm saying. Like, some of this stuff comes off as either like not so heroic, or it's like, wow, you guys are some real assholes. And I get it, Bishop did try to kill you and all, but even at that, like, usually, and I know I'm using the older turtles and stuff, but the turtles in general, even when they had people that try to kill them and stuff, they would at least be a little bit more sympathetic or compassionate. I'm not saying they don't kill, but they wouldn't just be like that casual about it though. Like, oh, you know, like they'll take a life, you know, without like, you know, like they'll take life like that, not that seriously, you know. I'm just being honest, all right. And then at one point, like Michelangelo, he actually let some of the purple dragons like avoid being arrested. Like, there was one episode where where Michelangelo was fighting the purple dragons, and like they were literally like robbing a convenience store. And after like Michelangelo had saved the day and stopped Lee from almost like drowning and electrocuting everybody and stuff, Michelangelo just lets the purple dragons just walk and stuff, like with a warning, even though again they held up a convenience store. And I'm like, you know, any other version of Michelangelo would have beat the dog shit out of the purple. He may be a nice guy, but he would have beat the dog shit out of the purple dragons, at least knock them out, tie them up, and leave them for the police. Okay, that way they can learn their lesson. But no, they just walked and stuff like, oh no, we're cool, and they were even looking down on him and stuff too, or down on him as they were doing it. I'm just like, Michelangelo, what the hell are you doing? Alright, and then there was something else that I kind of noticed, that pretty much none of the villains had like received any ramifications or any consequences for their actions, which is kind of a trope that I'm kind of starting to hate. Well, not even starting to. That it's kind of a trope that I kind of hate in modern cartoons. So this isn't the first time this has happened. Like, it's happened in other stuff, like for example in Netflix She-Ra, where the villains had got off because they either reformed or some kind of redemption. It happened in Master of the Universe Revelations, where Evil Lynn had got off and she reformed or whatever, even though she tried to destroy the entire universe or whatever, but okay. And then it happened inside My Adventure Superman, where pretty much every villain has either been let off or whatever. Like, it's weird because I just like watched season 2 just for the hell of it, you know. I was just to make fun of it, and I'm just like going to myself like, did Superman literally just straight up call his rogues gallery his friends? I'm like, the people that you fight on a day-to-day basis that you try to lock up, but you actually don't in this series. Because he tries to talk him down and all that stuff or whatever, and he's like, well, you gotta come with me, or he, and I'm just like, are you waiting to get punched in the face? Take him out. What are you doing? But I don't know. I think it's part of some weird anti-cop narrative, but that's just me. And then what else is there? And now they're doing it inside Tales of the TMNT. All right. So I don't like that. Not too much, because it's just like, okay, so what's the resolve here, you know? But anyways, yeah, but they try to really make you sympathize with the villains, where they kind of justify their wrongs and are just forgiven later because they don't know any better, or they have a mutual kind of relationship with the hero and it's just let off the hook. In the end of the day, I kind of just see it as just bad morality on the writers and stuff on their part for just creating a show for a new generation and just thinking some of this is kind of acceptable behavior to kind of want to aspire to. Because imagine like, oh, and I'm not saying like, you know, parents can't teach their kids right from wrong or whatever, but I'm just, you know, just being a little hypothetical. Just imagine like a kid, you know, like just looks up to this version of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? And they see them like stealing or whatever, or yeah, I mean, I know, I'm not trying to be like one of those like type of people, but I'm just using it as an example. But they steal, they almost like let some people die and all that other crap, etc. They just let those little purple dragons just get away with like robbing a convenience store versus, again, like I said, knocking them out and leaving them for the police. It's like, why? So I mean, I'm not saying, like I said, I mean, because I'm pretty sure, like, you know, like it's not like, oh, well, this entire show is going to influence our like the next generation or whatever. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is like it's just not really good, like ethically or morally, in my opinion. So that's one of my nitpicks with this show. Alright, now that I'm done talking about the nitpicks, I'm actually going to talk about the designs up next. So, my thoughts on the designs in general, I think they all look uncool and honestly kind of lazy. Now, I know they nerfed the designs in favor of making the animation look a lot more fluent, and it's a lot more easier and quicker to kind of put out. Kind of like what Rise did, basically, where they kind of, you know, differentiated the turtles by making them all this and all that stuff just to have cool action scenes and all that stuff, versus like, I don't know, well, which I'm not saying it has to be complicated, but I just feel like, yeah, that's just a laziness on your part, but that's just me. But anyways, let me use Bishop for example in this show. So Bishop doesn't look cool, has a bowl cut, she has a terrible stompy body, baggy pants, terrible looking robotic arm, and a scarf just to top it all off. And it's like, okay, am I supposed to like this design? Or yeah, and like, didn't they not, like, if I'm not mistaken, don't they have like a toy or something of this version of Bishop? I'm like, yeah, what kid would want to go out of their way and want to buy a toy of Dr. Josephina Bishop, you know? It's like, oh, I want to get a toy of Amanda Waller. It's not like I want to get a toy of, I don't know, Starfire or something, or I want to get a toy of it's a character with a cool design, or I don't know, Spider-Man or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, they have cool designs, but you know what I mean? But this is a terrible fucking design, man. It's like, yeah. But anyways, unless you just want to reenact your whole Tales of the TMNT thing, or you're a collector or something, I guess. But I just don't see the value of really, you know, of this design though. Then the robots and stuff, the robots look generic, like they were all assembled by a bunch of junkyard parts and scraps. Like, it looks awful. And while the aquatic mutants have potential and some interesting designs, like the enemies, if I'm saying that right. They don't look imposing. They really look like, well, I don't even know. They look kind of bland. Like I said, they're interesting conceptually, but it's just like they don't look imposing. They don't look terrifying. They don't look like, oh, they're much of a threat. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this as an artist. So like, I'm just like, yeah, I just don't see like what kind of makes you like, oh shit, you know? And then there's the East River 3, where all of them, which again, I did say that I did like some of the designs and concepts, but their attire is trash. Okay? Pretty much they all wear biker outfits and leather jackets and all that stuff, and that's it. And I'm like, really? Nothing like tailor made to their powers or their body types or you know, or some kind of swimwear at least, you know, to show that they're aquatic, because they are flooding the city. So what good is a leather jacket and a t-shirt and some jeans going to be if you're flooding the city, you know? But whatever. And as for the turtles, while I'm on the subject, I mean, they still don't look like they're 15, and they don't really have any like kind of muscles or some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of like physical fitness and stuff where I can at least believe that they're able to do all the superhuman feats, even though they're supposedly supposed to be ninja. But okay, so I'm supposed to believe that they can do stuff like overpower robots. They can do those whole rooftop runs and all that. I can't believe it. So anyways, but almost every other version of the turtle has some level of like nimbleness and some kind of build. Hell, even the 87 turtles, even though yeah they're short, or even the Mirage, like Mirage, yeah, they're probably the shortest version of the turtles actually, because Mirage is like around like 4 feet tall or so. But even them, like, they have some kind of muscle and some type of tone because they work out and train on a daily basis and stuff, you know, and they're still 15. I'm just saying, but whatever. But at least like every version of the Ninja Turtle up to this, like up to that point, up to like, well, this point with like Mutant Mayhem and all that, or Tales of the TMNT, like at least when they like throw punches or kicks or they strike, you know it will hurt because they have that kind of like their physical, like, you know, they have that superhuman like level of like of feats and stuff, so it makes sense. All right, and I guess this might also fall into the category of oh wait, sorry, I'm not done with nitpicks. What am I saying? This might fall into the category of my nitpicks, but the episode titles are so goddamn bad. Now, how can I not mention how lame sounding that the episode titles are? I mean, here's some examples. Leonardo stands alone. Mikey does the right thing. Raph thinks it through. Donnie hangs tough. Bishop makes her move. Raph versus water. Raph versus water. Think about that. Splitter and April fight a goldfish. Yeah, very, very creative episode titles. Okay, and I'm not even good at, like, I'm not that good at creating episode titles, but Jesus. Or like, because I mean, I like to write my own stories and all that stuff, and I'm like, damn, sometimes it's hard to think of some shit. This is like, goddamn, did you guys just think of anything and just put it down? Like, come on, bro. Or at least you could have, like, I don't know, at least during development, could have really just changed these titles at the last minute, or had some kind of, I don't know, naming scheme or something. Like, God, this is terrible. Alright, now that I'm officially done with nitpicks, I'm actually going to talk about the voice acting. Now, I'm a little impressed with some of the actors from the movies, like Rose Byrne, Leatherhead, reprising her role for the show, even though she wasn't really in there for long. And there's probably some other people in there too, or some other, yeah. But they were in there for too long. And then most of the actors, like, you know, most of the, like, you know, the more notable actors like Ice Cube, John Cena, Jackie Chan. Of course, I expected them not to be in the series because they got, you know, well, Ice Cube's character, Superfly, got killed off anyways. And I'm like, John Cena and Jackie Chan, yeah, they're too big of celebrities to kind of, like, really come back from the show unless they had the money for it. But anyways, yeah. And it's funny too because Seth Rogen didn't come back even though he created this this stupid ass show in the first place. But okay. Well, anyways, yeah. So I didn't really have any high expectations for that. And granted, they did actually manage to get Danny Trejo for this show to voice Mustang Sally, which I didn't realize until I looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, because I've seen him in some stuff. I'm not even sure if I'm saying his last name right, by the way. But yeah, Danny Trejo. But yeah, I remember seeing him in some stuff like Badass and stuff, the first two movies and whatnot. Well, there's only 2 movies, but yeah. and I think he was also in The Flash for a little bit here and there too, as Gypsy's dad, if you actually watch that show. But yeah, but I definitely remember seeing him in some stuff. But yeah, but anyways, the main characters are still badly casted, in my opinion, and are still played by teenagers. And yes, I know it's the same cast from the movies that played the teenagers or whatever. It was still a bad idea then, and it's still a bad idea now, if you ask me. All right, like I get it's because the turtles are teenagers, but preferably I would have wanted some professional voice actors to actually come and actually, like, you know, that actually reach puberty and stuff and actually like take the job seriously. Because hell, even Donatello's like voice actor and stuff, like his voice actor, I know his voice be cracking up a lot, especially in the movie and a little bit in the show. And then like halfway through the series or whatever, his voice finally gets deeper. So I'm like, this probably wouldn't have happened if you actually found somebody that was old enough and somebody that was like a professional voice actor. And I'm not saying that I want somebody that's like super old or somebody that's super young or whatever. No, just somebody that can just do the job. It's that easy, you know, because I mean, even the 87 Turtles, like their voice actors, sometimes they come along and actually reprise their roles like they did for the 2012 series, or like they did for the Shredder's Revenge video game, and they still sound like the Ninja Turtles. They still like have that, like that talent where they, or that range where they can still sound like, you know, their teenage selves or whatever, or sound like the Turtles at least, you know. It doesn't have to be like, well, they sound like teenagers, but you get the idea. They still sound like the Ninja Turtles from when they voiced them from like over 40 years ago, so that's still pretty impressive. Now, or at least 30 years, whatever, you get the idea. Now, but I'm just saying though, I'm just looking forward to like, they should have just casted like more professional voice actors and stuff, because they keep finding like actors that are either teenagers or that are just some kind of glorified celebrity. And the thing is, like, we don't care about fucking glorified celebrities, okay? Like, I'm gonna use Mortal Kombat as an example, right? Because it really makes voice acting look like a joke when you cast like these teenagers, or you cast glorified celebrities as voice actors and stuff. It can work for a movie, but it does not work for like TV shows and all that other stuff, okay? Now, for example, I'm gonna use Mortal Kombat. Now, Mortal Kombat failed twice when they casted Ronda Rousey as Sonya Blade, and they casted Megan Fox as Natara, okay? The fan base had ripped them up to sunder about that whole thing, okay? They did that back in Mortal Kombat 11. It failed. They did it again in Mortal Kombat 1, the new one, with Natara. People clown the shit out of Megan Fox because she's not a good voice actor, or probably a good actor in general. I don't know, but I mean, she might have some stuff, I don't know, but I mean, in the stuff that I'd be hearing about her, most people just like her because of her looks, but her voice acting ain't there either, okay? And acting and voice acting are kind of two completely different skill sets, okay? Sometimes, I mean, some actors can actually pull it off, but most of the time, usually voice acting and acting are just, yeah, they're two sides of the same coin or whatever, but they're two different things, all right? But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, like, really experience and skill, I feel like that should be valued a lot more, and that should be like more of the golden standard, more so than just youth, unless like some kind of physical performance or something. But we're talking voice acting wise. Voice acting, you can get away with that, okay? Acting, not so much, all right? And on top of that, what do I think of the new Splinter voice? I also was not impressed by that either, if I'm going to be honest with you, okay? Anyways, those are my thoughts as far as the voice acting goes. Alright, I said it once and I'll say it again. I see no potential in the Mutant Mayhem series because of how they wrote it and how unimportant the stuff that they focused on. It adds nothing new to the TMNT mythos or anything we haven't already seen. Not to mention, this is like one of the weakest versions of the characters. One of the things I like about the series is how unorthodox the adventures can get, or how much trouble and stuff that they can actually get into, and how it's made sense. Things like time travel, spirituality, magic, ninjas, sci-fi, space exploration, aliens, and even gods were all kind of rationalized with good storytelling. Think back to the first comic by Eastman and Laird. Something that was originally a one-shot became something bigger thanks to the talent and how much effort they had put into the story, and how much like people also enjoyed it as well. And this series to me is just a mockery of that, and it kind of just sucks at the fun out of the original shows and the media that comes before it. And if you think I'm being rigid and I just don't like change, then what exactly is this series? De-aging the Turtles, battling mutants, and also regressing their development. Now, for me, what I want to see is I want to see the characters that haven't been touched yet in the comics, them exploring other societies and cultures, some other character progression, something, you know? That's what I want to see. But that's just me. And there will be people who are fans of it. I'm not going to like say that, you know, of this series and all that stuff, like the newer generation. And either they're just none the wiser or they're just like it just because it's just the cultural trend at the time, you know? To me, it's like comparing Teen Titans Go to the original 2003 cartoon. The original was an anime-inspired take of the New Titans from the comics, which introduced a lot of underrepresented heroes at the time, and the other is just basically just a zany parody where the characters aren't treated with the same level of respect and doesn't take itself seriously. Does that sound familiar? All right. I may sound harsh, but if I had to rate this series, I would say it's pretty much close to a 4 out of 10, an F minus, a 40%. And that's not because I was bothered by the agenda or the wokeness or anything. It's just not a good show to me. And if I'm being honest, like finishing 12 episodes, I felt like a kid trying to finish up his Brussels sprouts or something, or trying to eat his vegetables, like at dinner or something. It's like, no, I just can't, like, I don't know, I just can't really get through this. And I'm really not kidding, or I'm not trying to exaggerate, I'm being serious. Anyways, but yeah, it was just that boring. It was just too much add-ons and improvising. The characters don't really have any kind of hook that gets me wanting to like root for them or any kind of investment. And there's just no like revalue in just watching this show. Like again, after like already seeing it, you know, that's just how I feel. Now, if you like this show, you might like Rise because that series was also restricted to just the mutant aspect and went to the entire like series before actually introducing the Shredder towards the end. And also on top of that, they like to have the same kind of humor and joke around a lot too. Or if you actually want something that's where they actually do represent teenagers in a more accurate light, then I recommend watching the 2012 series. But really, we don't have to we don't come to TMNT because they're teenagers. We come to it because it's an action series about brotherhood. And we can have TMNT stories without them being teenagers. If anything, Last Ronin or TMNT 2020 or what else? Or the Image Comics, they've definitely proven that the Turtles can definitely be adults, or Volume 4, that the Turtles can definitely be adults, and you can have stories where they definitely sell. Or, what was it? The Cyber Samurai story arc from the Archie comics? Yeah. And those guys were like 100. So you can definitely have stories where the Turtles are definitely older and stuff. I'm not saying I want them to be super old, but I want them at least to be young adult age, and maybe they can probably have some predecessors or some kind of students or something. I don't know, something to progress the characters, but who knows, maybe another time I'll probably suggest more things. But anyways, this is the Join Low Fox. I'm out. Peace, and until we meet again. And tell me down below what you guys thought of the series. I would like to hear what you got to say.